Welcome to part 2 of perception. In this section, we are going to talk about perception of self, self-perception. And I differ a little bit with the book here because the book talks about 3 parts. I don't think it works as well, so I got rid of self-awareness altogether. And I only talk about self-concept and self-esteem. Think of it a little bit like a math formula. Self-concept plus self-esteem equals self-perception. Self-perception is that overall view of who you are. And so first we're going to talk about self-concept. And self-concept is how you see yourself as an amalgamation of skills and traits and abilities. Think of it a little bit like an inventory of who you are. It's the recipe of who you as a person are. And it's literally just a list of things. That's self-concept. Now, where does that come from? How does it develop? How do you change it? How do you work with it? Well, it comes from a variety of different places. And in front of you, you're going to see a little circle that has 4 quadrants. And this is where it comes from. And the first quadrant is that it comes from how other people treat you. You're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. The way others see you affects how you see yourself. So if other people, for example, see you as a jerk, and enough people treat you like you're a jerk, you're probably going to start to see yourself as a jerk. This is why a lot of young girls, as they get older, have self-esteem issues, because people treat them a certain way, and so many people treat them a certain way, they believe it themselves. And that is called the looking glass self. And the looking glass self is not you looking at and seeing yourself reflected in other people. It's you act a certain way and other people respond to that, and you're actually seeing their response. And so you get an idea of, oh, I must be a jerk, or I must be really nice, or I must be really dumb, or because that's how other people treat me. Now, this can be a positive thing. It can be a negative thing. We'll talk about that more later. That's one thing. Another way in which we develop our self-concept is when we compare ourselves with other people. Now you're thinking, wait a second, that seems very similar. They both involve other people, but the first one is how other people treat you. The other is you're looking at them and saying, wow, they are really tall. I wish I was tall. That's my thing. I wish I was tall. I want to be 6 feet tall. I've actually thought about breaking my legs and stretching them. I want to be 6 feet tall. That's comparing ourselves with other people, right? You see somebody, you're like, oh man, they're really nice. I want to be nicer. Oh, they're really mean. I don't want to be mean. So it's a comparison of how other people act and are. So that's a second way. A third way you see in the lower right-hand side there is cultural teachings. Our culture basically informs who we are. We're going to talk more about culture in its own chapter, but we learn certain behaviors from our culture. For example, some cultures view eye contact as a negative thing. And so you learn through that culture to make or not make eye contact. Some cultures view, if you're a girl in some cultures, you can't do certain jobs. And so you learn that through your culture. And if you are opposite that, you go against that, all of a sudden you start feeling off because you're like, wait a second, I shouldn't be that way. And it can cause issues. And then the last place which our concept, our list, our recipe comes from is self-evaluation. This is where you just look in upon yourselves and say, this is what I can do, this is who I am, You don't judge it. That comes in esteem. Esteem is the judgment phase. This is where you're just listing. So you would literally be, you know, how a store will go through periodically and do an inventory and see what they have in stock. It's the same thing. You're going through, you're saying, wow, I am really good at these things. Or, man, I am really bad at these things. That is another place where our concept, again, that's our recipe, our list, comes from. And that's how you change it, is simply these 4 processes. That's how new things get on your list, right? It's just like a store gets new items, your concept can get new experiences. And that's either through learning them because you did them. You know, it's like, hey, we're going to go rock climbing today. And so you're like, I've never been rock climbing. So you go out there and you go rock climbing. And all of a sudden, that's something that goes onto your list now because of that personal experience. Or maybe you did it because you saw somebody else do something. You're like, well, I'm really interested in that. So you do a little bit of research and learn about it. So that's how things enter our concept. The second part of the equation is esteem, self-esteem. Now, you hear these terms, self-concept, self-perception, self-esteem, they get bandied about interchangeably. In common usage, that is fine. But in reality, they're all different. They're all very, very different things. Again, concept is the list. That's your recipe. Esteem is how you value the list, how you value those skills, how you value those traits. Do you see them as valuable or as a waste? And they're very linked. So let's say you're a guy and you're a really good cook, or you're really good at sewing, or you like to do arts and crafts, and everybody around you criticizes you for doing that. How is it going to make you feel about a skill that you have? It's probably going to make that you feel, oh man, I feel bad because I have this skill and everybody thinks it's stupid. And so your esteem is going to drop, which is going to make your whole self-perception go down. And so that is what esteem is. It's very crucial to the whole self-perception process, because if you think negatively, you're going to act negatively, you're going to communicate negatively, which we'll talk about more in a minute. So my statement here is, screw them. If you have a skill or a trait that you think is valuable, don't let anybody else tell you that it's not. I can sew. I have a sewing machine. It happens to be pink because that was the only color they had. But guess what? I don't care because it does the job. I don't care that it's pink. I can cook. I like to craft things. Why? Because I think it's interesting. And so I refuse to allow other people's perceptions of what I should or shouldn't be as a man affect how I view my evaluation. And this is the one that a lot of people have trouble with. I guarantee you, if you're a woman sitting in this class, you have a self-esteem issue. And if you say that you don't have a self-esteem issue, I'm not going to call you a liar because I don't know you well enough to call you a liar, but the only person you're fooling is yourself. And there's a reason for that. Guys have it too. It's just comes out in a different way. And why do you think that is? Why do you think women have self-esteem issues? It's the damn media, right? Because here you are, minding your own business as a young girl, doing the things that you find interesting. Then the media comes along, and you start seeing pictures of what women should look like. Although most men don't want those women. They think they're icky. You know, they're fake, they're too skinny, whatever. They want people who look healthy. Or what you shouldn't do as a woman. And so all of a sudden it starts preying on you. Society tells you how to be. And you're like, but I'm not like that. That's not what my skills are. That's not what So you start having this internal conflict between what you want to do, what you like to do, and what everybody else tells you you should do. And so you start doubting yourself, and that's when your self-esteem goes in the crapper. Guys do it too. We are just less open about it. Like me, I don't care. I have self-esteem issues when it comes to my job. I work really hard. It doesn't matter though. I can be the best I can be, and it doesn't matter. So I'm being told constantly that my efforts almost don't matter. And so that makes me question, which makes me feel bad, which then affects my whole self-perception. So don't let anyone tell you. If you like it, if you think it's a good skill, if you think it's a good trait to have, then by all means, continue on. Now, if everybody tells you, man, you're a jerk, you might want to take a little bit of self-reflection to see that maybe if you are being a jerk, but generally speaking, don't let anyone else tell you how you should be or what you should do. How do you improve it? How do you improve your self-esteem? Because everybody can stand to improve their self-esteem. Attack these destructive beliefs. We tend to think that we have to be perfect. Even people who are not perfectionists think that they have to be perfect. No, you don't. You're human. You make mistakes. I'm a perfectionist. I want everything I do to be perfect. I will literally scrap an entire document and redo it if one word is wrong, or like the schedules that I do, if one box is not properly outlined, I'll go through and make sure that it's properly outlined because I want everything to be perfect. But when it's not perfect, I don't get upset because I know I can't be perfect. I strive for perfection because I want to be the best I can be, but I understand that I can't be. We want to think that we have to be strong. And so like you see men who are clearly hurting and clearly upset, but they don't want to show any weakness. So they end up, you see this a lot with returning vets. They come back, and the military is such a macho culture, a masculine culture, that they think they have to be strong. And that showing any kind of weakness, physical or mental, is weakness in the negative sense. And so they end up, hanging themselves or jumping off a bridge because their mind breaks. You're allowed to not be strong. We believe that we have to please other people all the time. So a lot of people, everything they do, and when their whole life is about pleasing other people, well, then you're not living your own life. And so and oftentimes, one of my best friends, he's a good guy, but he takes advantage of women. He always dates women who have low self-esteem, and he plays into that. I've hassled him about it all the time. He finds women that are all about pleasing him. He hasn't, since I've known him, 7 years, he hasn't made his own drink once. Not one time. He always gets his girl to make his drink. Which we all hassle her too to say, hey, tell him no, your legs ain't broken. We have these destructive behaviors that just get in our own way. And then, we set ourselves up to fail. And of course, if you fail all the time, you're going to have low self-esteem. So pick realistic goals. Beware the imposter phenomenon, as the book calls it. And what that means is you're going along and you're succeeding in life, but you can't imagine that you actually earned it. How many of you do that? Probably a lot of you. You're like, you work really hard and you succeed, and you're like, well, I got lucky. No, if you worked hard, give yourself credit where credit is due. If you earn something, if people give you a compliment, take the damn compliment. Don't say, oh no, I got lucky, because then you're just undercutting your own self-esteem. Find people who encourage you, who nourish your self-esteem. If you're around people who are constantly criticizing you, your self-esteem is going to be weaker. And then I ask you this question. If you know that they're undercutting your self-esteem, why are you hanging out with them? It's a guy thing to insult. Like, guys do that. I don't like to play that game because I grew up as a kid being insulted by lots of different people. I had a girl's name, Kimber. Tried growing up with a name like Kimber in the 70s. I got hassled constantly. I was small, I was poor, I didn't have much. And so people always were poking. And so I don't like to play that insult game. And I don't play that insult game. And I actually, when it gets on my nerves, I actually tell them, hey, enough. And I have gotten rid of people who are just toxic because they're constantly undercutting self-esteem. One of the things that we tend to do is we focus on our failures when we forget our successes. Strive to see your successes. Everybody fails. We're human. We're not perfect. But don't focus on that. Focus on your success in life and whatever you do. Because if you focus on your failures, then you are going to constantly question yourself. That's something I struggle with. As an adjunct who has to work multiple jobs at multiple schools, I have to try to find success and say, you know what? I struggle with these things, but when a student sends me an email or a student, I get a letter from my boss who said that, hey, a student stopped by and wanted to tell me how good you were. That goes a long way. That's the stuff I try to focus on. Work on projects that will result in a success. Don't set yourself up for failure. If you say, hey, I need to lose weight, that's a good goal. Saying I have to lose 100 pounds in 6 months is a terrible goal because you are going to fail 99.9% of the time. And so what's going to happen? You try to lose weight and you don't lose weight at the rate you want to lose weight. What happens now? You end up getting all pissed off and going out and eating a bunch of nachos. And you gain all that weight back. And now your self-esteem is damaged and you're like, oh, I'm just fat. I'm always going to be fat. I'm never going to be skinny, right? So then you never try again. Don't set yourself up to fail. Pick goals that are going to result in successes. And secure affirmation from other people. And what I mean by that is it's not about fishing for compliments. I hate it when people, i.e. women, say things like, oh, do these pants make me look good? Or, oh, how do you like my new hair? Whether I like it or not, I'm going to tell you whether I like it or not. You don't need to ask me. That's not what seeking affirmation is. Seeking affirmation is, how do people react to you? If you work really hard, do people appreciate you? And if they're not, because a lot of times we don't tend to, it's like you go to a restaurant and if you're a server, people rarely compliment you if things are good. They only say stuff when things are bad. And in life, that can really hurt you. So what you have to do is, if you're not getting to ask people, say, hey, what do you think about this? It's not fishing for compliments. It's just saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And so that is self. Self-concept, which is a list. It's your recipe of who you are as an individual, plus esteem, which is how you value the things on a list. So let's say on the list you have tall. And do you think being tall is a good thing or a bad thing? If you think it's a bad thing, you're going to feel bad about yourself. Your self-esteem is going to drop. Your overall self-perception is going to drop. Good singer. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? If you think it's a good thing, your esteem is going to go up, which is going to make your perception as a whole go up. And that is perception and self-esteem and self-concept. And that is the end of part 2. Join us when we talk about how to form perceptions of others.